Hey, what's up, you little freaks? I'm back again with another unscripted ramble type video, because recently I have been thinking about the depths. More specifically, I've been thinking that this fandom has been hard overthinking the depths for a really long time. I think that this collective idea of the depths that we've had since the Chapter 2 era of theorizing is a little outdated. So today I want to talk to you about why I think the depths as we imagine them are not real, and at the same time offer an alternate explanation to the depths that will make you really angry at me. It's gonna be a controversial one today. It's gonna get silly. You're gonna think I've lost my mind, but I am telling you right now, this is not goddamn clickbait. I need you to trust me when I say that I sincerely believe the depths lie in the toilets of Hometown. I get it. I know it sounds ridiculous, but just trust in your chef and let him cook. You clicked on the video that was called Toilet Theory. By doing so, you've accepted everything that will happen from now on. So let's get into it already. Before we start into the theory proper, I figure I should probably explain exactly what the depths are in case anyone's not familiar. On the last video, I got a lot of comments asking me to explain the more brain-rotted terms I was using. So basically, if you don't know what the depths are, the first thing that you should know is that this is a very speculative concept, very fan-centric. Basically, anything I say about the depths, you should imagine like a big asterisk next to what I'm saying, and then the words, "This could totally be fucking wrong." But ostensibly, the depths are the thing that you see when you boot up the game for the very first time. Your soul comes on screen and that background fades in. And Gaster starts talking to you, he's like, "It's so wonderful to be connected to you in this way," and you're like, "All right, buddy, I just met you." and he's like, "Select the head that you prefer," and you're like, "All right, buddy, buy me dinner." The background to that sequence, the wavy blue hypnotic background, is the depths. And that is defined as the depths because of the image that's layered over itself to make that background. In the files of the game, that image is called image_depth. Which may not seem all that significant at first, but there is one more reference to something called the depths in the game, and that is a quote from Jevil. You may not be familiar with this at first because you only see this line if you beat Jevil with violence, and you may not have even beaten Jevil in the first place, so double whammy. But in the monologue he gives after you beat him with violence, he says, "The hand of the night is drifting forward. Soon the queen returns, and hell's roar bubbles from the depths." So there's just like a shit ton of foreshadowing in that line. It was all the way back in Chapter 1, and he's talking about the Knight's plan moving forward. He's talking about Queen coming in the next chapter, and he's talking about the roaring happening later on in the story. But the particular way he phrases it is hell's roar bubbles from the depths. And people read into this line because, the information we have on the roaring is pretty sparse already, so anything we can get we'll take. So it seems like this line is implying that the roaring is bubbling up from someplace called the depths. And that is the extent of the information we have on the depths. We have the implication that the roaring is going to come from the depths, and we have the implication that this place that the intro takes place in is the depths. And also the intro texture is used one more place in chapters 1 and 2, and that is when you walk up close to the fountains as Chris and Susie. And that same texture is used for the texture of the dark fountains up close, except it's like, it has like this Windows Movie Maker ass like rainbow filter over it. So not a lot of information, obviously, but us Deltarune fans, we theorize like there's no tomorrow, man. And one particularly interesting thing about that depths image is that someone discovered that it was actually a picture of the ocean. It was just like flipped upside down and recolored a bit, but it was a stock photo of the ocean. I actually before I made this video, I asked on Twitter if anyone knew who originally made the discovery so I could credit them, but I got 2 replies from 2 different people who both said that they discovered it independently and both gave me proof that they did so. So credit to both @LinerOswald and @DarkerCandy for discovering this at different times independently. But that was another layer on top of the whole depths mystery. The depths is like an ocean, apparently. At the very least, it really drives home the whole darkness equals water kind of thing that Deltarune is going for. On top of the depths being water, there's also how darkness is literally like fountains in Deltarune. I think the Grand Fountain even gets called a geyser at one point. Shadow crystals are said to move like water in your hand. I think the Shadow Mantle is said to make shadows slip off of it like water. And of course the Hell's Roar bubbles from the depths, water bubbles. And there's the importance of ice in the weird route and how you can freeze darkners, but I think I'm getting off track here. So, the depths is like this ocean of swirling darkness where apparently the Gonnermaker sequence takes place. The intro would lead you to believe that maybe that's where Gaster is hanging out as well. And because of that, a lot of people started to associate the shelter with the depths. Both of them are Gaster coded, so maybe the depths are in the shelter, or maybe the shelter is at least a sort of gateway to the depths. And then, while we're at it, a lot of people decided, hey, maybe the voice in the code is in the depths too. Maybe that's where Des is lost. Not like there's a lot of proof there, but why not? Maybe the depths are like a dark world at the bottom of the lake in town, right? Because depths are sort of like, people describe the bottom of the ocean as like depths, and, the depths are like water, so maybe that's where they are, and maybe Des drowned, and maybe Onion is hearing the song from the sea from there. It just felt natural to a lot of people that the depths was just like this deep, deep, dark place of the most pure, saturated darkness you could get, right? The so-called darker than dark. So maybe you could get to the depths by making a dark world within a dark world, by going deeper and deeper and darker until you get to this place of pure dark. And that's how you finally reach Gaster. Or maybe the depths are like this separate realm of pure darkness, right? This is where all the darkness is, and if you're making a dark fountain, you're tapping into it and letting out a little bit of darkness into where you are. Like sticking a needle into a water balloon, and then the roaring is like sticking too many needles into the water balloon and letting all the water out. Full credit goes to Brix Braxium for that theory, I believe. I'll put a link in the description. But regardless of where your opinions on the fantasy physics of it all lie, this is basically where the public opinion of it settled, on some variation of it being this sort of underlayer of darkness, on it being like this deep down dark layer of pure darkness. And to my knowledge, this vague understanding didn't really seem to get challenged all that much by the new chapters releasing. At least I haven't heard a lot of discussion about it. And of course I have to drop the disclaimer that I'm like an adult man with a life, and I'm not in tune with all the Deltarune discussion happening on the internet at all times, but I haven't seen much discussion of it personally. But there are a few pieces of evidence from the new chapters that seem to support this old way of thinking, like the prophecy panel from chapter 4 that reads, a world basked in purest light, beneath it grew eternal night. Like the eternal night growing beneath, like that's the fandom perception of the depths to a T, it feels like. The eternal night growing underneath the world. That's the depths. And then there's the scene where the night makes a fountain inside the dark world. Like, obviously, we now know that it's not really a thing to make dark worlds inside dark worlds. If you do that, now we know it just summons a titan. But we can see now that with the tower that forms when you first summon a titan, the depth texture is inside that tower. And it's not like the rainbow depth texture that's on a regular dark fountain, it's closer to the normal depth texture. It almost feels like we're getting closer to the depths by making a dark fountain inside a dark fountain. So based on these few pieces of evidence, you could say that the previous understanding of the depths is fully supported by these new chapters. But in my opinion, you'd be fucking wrong, dude. Because look, I get it. In the chapter 1 and 2 times, that depth texture was used fucking sparingly. It was used only in the Gonnermaker sequence and on the dark fountains. And it felt significant, like yes, that's the depths, and the dark fountains come up from the depths, that has to mean something. But I don't know if it's just gone over people's heads or what, but the depths texture is all over the fucking place in these new chapters. First of all, the depths texture appears during the battle against the knight. It's there like specifically on the knight's side of the battlefield and gradually grows more purple as the battle goes on. And like putting aside the fact that it's purple, like why the fuck is it purple? Why is the depth texture following the knight around in the first place? If we're to believe that that texture is representative of like the pure liquid darkness of the depths, why is it just out here? It's nowhere near a dark fountain. The dark fountain is like way off in the distance in chapter 3. And then after the knight runs away and you walk toward the grand door, This area that the door is in, like on the outskirts of TV World, is also clouded by the depths texture, just completely away from any dark fountains. Then in Chapter 4, all the prophecy panels are also like written in depths for some reason, in bright blue glowing depths. Not only does the tower have the depths inside it, but also when Susie and Chris jump inside the Titan has depths inside it as well. But here's the real kicker. This is the one that I didn't even know about until I skimmed a playthrough just to make sure I wasn't missing anything before recording this. The third sanctuary, the third dark world in Chapter 4, literally the whole thing is just overlaid with the depths texture. Like, while you're walking around in there, you're looking at the depths the whole time, and I bet your ass didn't even notice. Mine certainly didn't. My ass really needs to be more observant, it seems. I bring all this up to say, this might be a hard pill to swallow, but I think the depths texture just might not be as important as we thought it was. From the way it's getting used now in the game, it makes a lot more sense to me that this is just the game's way of illustrating really intense, deep darkness. Like, it's not indicative of a specific place or a specific kind of darkness. This is just how the game illustrates really deep darkness, because just making something pure black doesn't really do it in the same way. Because a bunch of things in the game are already pure black. That doesn't really create the same effect that this sort of swirling, hypnotic, rippling, psychedelic darkness does, you know? When Jevil says hell's roar bubbles from the depths, maybe it's worth considering that the depths isn't a physical place, and he's just saying that the roaring is coming from somewhere deep down. You know, like a dark world. Or hell, you know, like the place he talked about earlier in the sentence. And the Goner Maker, I don't know. I still think the Goner Maker takes place somewhere significant, somewhere where Gaster is or has influence over, but maybe it's not somewhere called the Depths. Maybe it's just somewhere very, very dark. Anyways, that's what a rational person would say. So let's start talking about toilet theory. So this theory revealed itself to me when I was thinking about the shelter. And no, I'm not just going to tell you that the depths are in the shelter. I wouldn't make this whole video just to tell you that. But I was thinking about the sound that comes from the shelter. And if you're not familiar, the sound smile.ogg comes from the shelter. Smile.og. And that is the Gaster sound. And it's slowed down by a factor of 666%, which is, again, if you're not familiar, the Gaster number. Which I guess isn't super relevant to this theory. You don't have to agree that the sound is Gaster related. You could believe that it's like a machine. You could believe that it's the sound of friend purring. You could believe that it's Gaster ripping a fat one. Most people seem to agree it's like the ambient rumbling of the Dark World on account of the fact that there's no real proof you can hear the goings-on of a Dark World from outside a Dark World, right? Like, for example, when you approach the Cyber City Dark World, you don't hear a bustling city from the outside. But whatever you think is making the sound, this sound is coming from inside the shelter, which makes it all the more strange that you can also hear it when you're in Noelle's basement. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is not a common consensus on what we're supposed to make of this. Personally, I think there has to be one common source for this sound, right? I don't think there's one source of the sound at the bunker and another source of the sound in Carol's basement. I think they have to be from the same source. And that implies that whatever is making that sound in the shelter has to be close enough to Carol's house for it to be audible there. And that gave me two thoughts. My first thought was, God damn, that's a big ass shelter. Because Noelle's house is across town from the entrance. If we're hearing the shelter noise from Noelle's house, are we to assume that it stretches all the way across town under the house, or at least like halfway across town? That sounded so preposterous to me that I even looked up the average size of a community storm shelter. And these things are not that big, they don't stretch that far. I mean, I won't say it's completely impossible, but the average size of these things is a building at most. They'll hold 20 people. But here was my second thought, and here's what blew the theory wide open, baby. What's something underground that the shelter could feasibly be connected to, but also stretch underneath Noelle's house and the entire town? I'll give you a hint. It's connected to your toilet. It is a sewer system. Yes, I am laying my theory down right here. I am making the claim that based on the fact that you can hear this sound at the shelter, but also under Noelle's house, I'm claiming that there is a massive dark world underneath Hometown, one that starts in the shelter, but extends throughout Hometown's entire sewer system. Honestly, you call it the depths if you want, but it doesn't even have to be the depths. I may sound crazy to you right now, but trust me, it only gets crazier. So to start off, like I said before, if this sound is originating inside the dark world, inside the shelter, whatever it may be, if this dark world extends all the way to underneath Carol's house in the sewers, it makes sense why you'd be able to hear it all the way across town. The sound is either echoing through the pipes or it's the ambient sound of the dark world itself. As previously discussed, the depth texture is a picture of the ocean. Darkness is like water and sewers carry water. So if the Goner Maker were taking place in this sewer dark world, it makes sense why the background would be this swirling, watery texture. There's also the prophecy panel we were talking about earlier. A world basked in purest light, beneath it grew eternal night. In my interpretation, the sewers are literally physically beneath Hometown, and that is where this dark world is growing. But this is all pretty surface level stuff so far. I don't expect you to be totally swayed yet, so let's get into the more interesting stuff. Sewers let off into natural water sources, and Hometown's nearest natural water source would be the lake, right? So if those sewers connect to the lake, then Onion still could be hearing the Song of the Sea come from the sewers. And Onion says that the song coming from the sea isn't a new song. It's something that they've heard before, but now they're just hearing parts of. And we now know the Knight hangs out in the shelter. It's like their base of operations for whatever reason. And I'm a Death Knight believer myself. I mean, more power to you if you don't believe so, but that's not really what I'm here to argue in this video. But assuming Des is the Knight, we know that Des is a musician, right? I mean, obviously there's the guitar, she most likely played the piano, and there are a billion other instruments in her room. So is it possible that in her spare time in the bunker, when she's not tending to her nightly duties or what have you, she's making music just for herself, you know, to pass the time? And Onion says that this song isn't a new song, it's something that they've heard before. So if Des is making some sort of music down in the shelter dark world, and it's echoing through the pipes enough that Onion-san can hear it, it could be something that they've heard before just because Des used to make music when she lived in Hometown, right? I think that's not a bad idea as to what the Song from the Sea could be. And this also gives an explanation as to why Onion hasn't come back yet. Because Onion left to investigate what the song was at the end of Chapter 2, and by the end of Chapter 4, they haven't come back yet. So is it possible that Onion entered the Dark World in the sewers and they haven't come back? And furthermore, could the Dark World in the sewers be leaking out into the bottom of the lake? Maybe the Dark World's going to start climbing up, maybe the lake is going to fill up with darkness or something. So, Dark World in the shelter connects to Dark World in the sewers, connects to the lake, connects to Song from the Sea. But you know what else it connects to? Manholes. Manholes are kind of weirdly important in Deltarune, at least on the weird route. And manholes, if you didn't know, are the things that let you get into sewers. I don't know why I'm treating you like a baby, sorry. But, so the first instance of a manhole in Deltarune is in Chapter 2. Once you Snowgrave Birdley on the weird route, there's Noelle leaves your party, and then since there's nothing else to really do on the route, you walk into a back alley and you find a manhole, and you jump in, and then it skips you straight to Queen's Mansion. And then the next instance of a manhole is in the back rooms of Chapter 3. If you got an S rank and then walked back into the room where you can do the sword route, you might have walked to the right and then checked behind the curtain and gotten the text that there was a manhole in the ground and wondered why that was there. And that exists because there's actually an alternate way to do the sword route. As far as I understand it, it's a way to get a little extra Tenna and Spamton backstory, but also, I guess, like, a gameplay admission if you're just, like, not good enough to get an S rank. but you can get a Z rank if you do real bad on the boards of Chapter 3, and there's a special Z rank room you can get into. And in that room, there's a manhole you can get into, which leads you to the manhole that's in the room that you can do the sword route in. And as you may know, the sword route in general is very associated with the weird route. It's basically a big way of foreshadowing the weird route and sort of instructing the casual player on how to maybe start the weird route if they're not terminally online and know how to do it from that way. And then there's one more manhole within the short route. I mean the fucking sword route. It's on board 3 of the sword route. After you kill the video game versions of Susie and Ralsei, it's quite similar to the Weird Routes version of the manhole. You walk down an alleyway of the city, jump into a manhole, and that time it brings you to board 3's main dungeon. So, manholes in this game are essentially associated with shortcuts, alternate routes, and the weird route in particular, which tracks because the weird route allows you to skip forward. And at first thinking about this, just the fact that manholes were important was like a win in my brain. I was just like, oh, manholes and sewers connect, another win for Cammy. But thinking about the fact that manholes provide skips forward in the weird route really got me thinking. Could a manhole in the light world provide a skip to the shelter? Right? Like if we were on the weird route and we weren't getting the shelter codes because, say, we weren't allied with Susie anymore or something, could we instead cheat our way into the shelter by opening a manhole, jumping into the sewer dark world, and then getting to the shelter that way? And people have been speculating that the weird route might end earlier than the regular route because in the Spampton Sweepstakes 2, there was this webpage that, hold on. Well, it's a lot to explain right now, and I'm not going to get into it, but there was a webpage from the Sweepstakes 2 that led people to believe that it was a hint toward how much weird route content would be in each chapter. And this webpage only covers chapters 1 through 5. And so there is speculation around if chapters 6 and 7 will feature the weird route, or if the weird route just ends in chapter 5. And if that speculation does turn out to be true, then I think, I don't know, this idea of using a manhole to skip to the shelter way earlier than you would otherwise, I think that kinda, I don't know, it does something, okay? It does something. And if I could push the idea even further, there's this fantastic video that you probably have seen if you're watching my videos, but it's called Roots Theory by Gold Pro. I'll link it in the description. It's really innovative and I quite enjoyed it. But this video, among many other things, it speculates that the dungeon from the Sword Routes Board 3, the one that the manhole connects to that I was talking about earlier, it depicts a rough map of Hometown. And I really like this idea from the video. It's something I'd never seen before. I think it has a few flaws, but in general I thought it was really smart, and has a few smoking guns that I think are hard to deny. But in particular, I wanted to talk about how the manhole connects to this dungeon. This manhole connects to this dungeon from the left. And what's to the left of Hometown? The area with the police tape that we can't enter right now, which a lot of people speculate to be the area that the festival is going to be held in next chapter. And there are no manholes available in a Hometown right now, so this is more fuel for the fire basically. If there's a manhole in town, it will become available next chapter when the festival happens. And when we enter it, perhaps we'll go through like a winding maze-like dungeon, you know, like sewer pipes, before ending up at our final destination of the shelter like we do in the sword route. So that's, I think, everything I had to say about fucking manholes. But now, we're talking about the pipes. I'm sorry about the pipes. I knew I shouldn't have done it. But you know, every pipe goes somewhere. They had to go somewhere! So I figure you probably remember Tenna's fucking insane rant about pipes during his breakdown in chapter 3. Because it is so bizarre. I mean, most of Tenna's breakdown, obviously it's chaotic, but like you get what he's talking about at least. Like when he has you play the music minigame, he fucks it up because it accidentally plays Spampton's theme instead of whatever song he was going to have it play instead. Like, that's understandable because Spampton's is X or whatever. When he has you play that cooking minigame, there are just pipes there. There are just pipes sitting there. And when he's prompted to give you instructions for the minigame, he says they're coming out of the pipes. They're crawling out of the pipes. Where are they going? Ha ha ha, I don't know. and these fucking dark creatures start just sliming right out of the pipes. And if you didn't know, these dark creatures coming out of the pipes, they actually aren't completely black in the game files. In the game files, these are actually fully sprited ices, but they've just been turned completely black for some reason. Even for all of Tenna's wacky antics, this is notably bizarre, it feels like to me. And at first I had a sort of similar reaction to the manholes. Like, it didn't actually matter what it meant. I was just like, oh, another unexplained connection to sewers. I can't stop fucking winning. But I have a theory about the pipes. First of all, where do these pipes come from? Because, like, I don't know, maybe that's a stupid question. But Tenna's minigames are all based on some sort of TV show, right? They're based on a cooking show and monster movies and, like, a music video channel, like MTV, right? What are these pipes? Where are they from? The only explanation I can fathom is that they're like the Dark World manifestation of like the literal pipes of Chris's house. And what comes crawling out when Tenna sets these pipes up? Well, number one feature of these creatures, am I spitting? They are dark. Number two, they are ice. Now, the fact that they're dark, I don't think I have to do much explaining for. If there's a dark world in the pipes, then really dark creatures crawling out of them, I think tracks. But the fact that they're ice creatures is really interesting to me, because we have reason to believe that the night has ice powers. First of all, because the Holiday family just has ice as a theme around them in general, right? Obviously, Noelle has ice powers, Carol just has a coldness about her in general, so there's reason to suspect that the night, be it Des or Carol or whoever, has ice powers as well. But then there's also the unused shadow crystal text. Basically, there's this line of dialogue in the game that is unused at the moment, but it was supposed to say that if you look through your shadow crystal while outside the shelter after Undyne gets kidnapped, that you can see her frozen in ice. And, you know, I do think that as long as dialogue is unused, you should be wary about using it as solid proof, and I understand that. But realistically, I don't think this dialogue would have been written at any point if Toby didn't intend for the night to have ice powers. I acknowledge it's totally possible that at halfway into the game's development, he decided it would be cooler if the night had fire powers instead, but I think it's unlikely, especially considering the rest of the holidays. So, tangent aside, I think the night has ice powers, and when Tenna opens up the pipes, dark ice creatures start crawling out of them. Specifically, ices, and I know this is insane. I know this is fucking insane. But Des was particularly fixated on icy. Noelle made blog posts about her and Des hunting icy cryptids together. Am I saying that Des is in the sewers creating an army of icy darkners? Maybe? I mean, what would the Knight need an army for, right? If the Knight wanted to, the Knight could take out, like, all of Hometown with fucking 10 minutes and a Cliff Bar. Okay, let's reel it back here. I think at the very least, this is suggesting that there is darkness and ice in the pipes. Maybe even darkness made of ice. They are coming out of the pipes. They are crawling out of the pipes. And why is Tenna so apologetic about it all, right? I'm sorry about the pipes. I knew I shouldn't have done it. Well, remember, Tenna is secretly working with Chris and the Knight. He obviously doesn't know everything about Chris and the Knight's plan. I mean, he didn't know he was going to get killed. And he doesn't know where the pipes lead. He literally says he doesn't know where the creatures are going. But right after the incident, he is immediately apologizing to Chris, saying he knew he shouldn't have done it. Maybe this was part of their deal. Maybe Chris in their deal was like, hey, distract the three heroes and also, like, don't let anything out of the pipes. Keep the fucking pipes closed. And he was just rash during his breakdown, and he did it just to spite them. You know, every pipe goes somewhere. They had to go somewhere. You know, I've seen theorizing that Tenna's so weird about it because he's basically repeating an argument Chris had with their parents when they tried to flush a bath bomb down the toilet as a kid. And, you know, that's a cool theory. I do like it. I'm certainly not trying to take away from those who believe that. I think they could even coexist. But that pretty much concludes the pipes segment of this video. Now, I finally want to circle back around to the roaring and Hell's Roar bubbles from the depths. Now, like I made clear already, I don't think that the sewer Dark World has to be the proper noun, uppercase, the depths. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. But in either case, I'm starting to imagine this as the place where the roaring bubbles up from, because I'm starting to imagine the roaring as a flood. Have you ever seen a drain overflow? Like the drain on a sink or a shower, it bubbles. The water pushing back up bubbles through. Imagine all the waterways in town, all the sinks and toilets and bathtubs beginning to bubble and overflow with pure watery darkness. Sewer grates and manholes overflowing, flooding the streets. The darkness finally bubbling to the top of the lake and overflowing the town. The ground cracks with fear like it does in the prophecy as pipes underground burst and fountains fill the sky, darkness pouring down like rain. I'm talking about a biblical level flood, like from the Bible, like Noah's Ark type shit. And this is supported by Raise Up Your Bat. I mean, fucking, because I'm with you in the dark, with your heart as the ark, which shall shine you the way through the waves? Are you fucking kidding me? While I was preparing to record this video, I actually watched another video that made these exact same points about the roaring being like a biblical flood. It was a great video, so shout out to Sub-Zero Turnip, and I'll put that in the description as well. But fucking, yeah. So I've taken you on a journey today. We've covered the shelter, the sewers, the lake, the manholes, the pipes, the roaring, but there's one last bit of evidence that I've been saving for last, because it's the bit of evidence that I came across last, and it sort of blew my own mind. I was already going down the mental rabbit hole of this all by myself, and I happened to look into my Twitter bookmarks because I was looking for something completely unrelated. But I just so happened to stumble across a tweet of that's not his name, of Jorkenstein's battle backgrounds. And you may have heard this before, but people like to look into these battle backgrounds for hints of foreshadowing. Especially this chessboard themed one, because it seems to hint at future bosses. Right, there's the king, the queen, there's like the optional sword route, the knight, the bishop doesn't really make sense, maybe you could read that as the titan, but then there's the flower, which might refer to next chapter. But imagine my surprise when I see this background. That's a fucking sewer system. I don't know how else to put it, man. That's just a sewer. That's sewers. It's tunnels underground. It's underground. You can see like fucking fish bones and bugs and bones underground, and there's just sewers there. It's sewers. And on the left side, you can see it going off screen, like how, you know, I predict how the manhole is going to be off to the left on the left side of town, and it lets off on the bottom right, how I predict it's going to connect to the lake, you know, and there's even like little bits of sand on the bottom right, you know, to like make it look like a fucking lake bed. Am I insane? I admit I might be insane, but like, there's no but, like, I am insane. I also tried to like fit the tutu, because this is the one where you get a tutu, and I was like, oh yes, and Des was a ballerina, but no, she wasn't. I literally just made that up. Well, there it is. There's toilet theory. Perhaps you could call it piss and shit theory too, or even gas leak theory too. Parentheses, they had the wrong pipes the first time. Either the depths are in the sewers, or the depths don't exist. Those are the only two options. If you watch this video and continue to believe in the depths that you believed in before watching this video, please repeatedly watch the video until your mind is changed. Well, hey, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, subscribe, please. I got more coming down the pipeline. I'm aiming for monthly uploads this year. And if you really liked it, consider supporting me on Patreon if you could. For a measly $3 a month, you could have early access to videos, monthly Q&As, and video shoutouts, and whatever else ends up on there. One time me and my buddy Snarlinger read a fanfiction shipping us. Doesn't that sound awesome? But yeah, Patreon plug over. Thank you so much for sticking it out to the end. And I wanted to thank everyone as well for the crazy support on the last video. I'll be honest, I was really worried about putting out something that I considered so, not up to the standard that I've set for myself. And seeing so many people enjoy it was such a relief. So these unscripted type videos, I'm gonna try and make a habit of doing them. So here's my plan for this year. As of this most recent newsletter, I feel like Deltarune is kind of fast approaching at this point. There was a point where I wanted to get out a few big theories before the next chapter dropped, but at this point I feel like it's in my best interest to focus my energy into making one big high-effort theory. So my goal is to work on that in the background to get it ready before the game comes out, and in the meantime all of my stray thoughts about the game I'll put into these unscripted videos. I got big stuff planned for this year, so I hope you guys are excited. Now let's finally get to the Patreon shoutouts. And a word for the patrons real quick. I'm very sorry to say this, but this is unfortunately the last time the little freaks are going to be read aloud. I am eternally grateful to you guys, I really am. It's just that the Patreon is getting to a size where it's not realistic to read everyone's names anymore. There are 100 of you guys now. There are 100 little freaks running around. All of your names will still appear in videos from now on, it's just that I won't be saying them out loud. And all the tiers above Little Freak will still have their names read out loud. So this is a last hurrah to the Little Freaks, and as a goodbye, I'll read them at a normal volume. EGOD, June, Joe, Wheelie Scoot, Irupop, Visible, Lilin, Duckquack, Avery Martin, Madeline, I'm Bowza, Winter, Brody, Stephen Allen, Ampharose, Dear God, 87, Shane Delbin, Batway, David Rendell, Allison Parker, Saturn, Hannah Nelson, Jordan DC, Faith Bassett, Yanis Yanosik MB, Ari, Pema, Weibo, Lukerfuffle, Spencer Folkart, Hilltop, Georgia, Ethan Wiederspan, Medicine Seller, Maru, Moib, Man vs. Manatee, Crytype Encrypted, Shop Talk, Lame Cinnamon, Semphonic, Eric Bretherton, I'm Jay, Bolt Dog 500, CJ Plus 3, Pinku, Rom Hack Eater, Supporting Goat, Luxio, Juicebox Thief, Charles Dugan, Mistor, Isla, Jesterfellow, Qwerty12, Noko, James McManus, Willow, Bitter Airy, Phil, Mahu Stars, Free Speech, Knotted Alpaca, Colin H., Mary, Michael Carl, Cauldron Man, Angel Mendoza, Gary Bob Darkness, Kai, Damon Dionysus, Snacks, Gamerbra, Razzle, Storky Tech, Red Pikmin from the beloved Pikmin franchise, Cool Beanstalk 7, Pip Talk, Dakota Katoa, Illusion Fox, Geekazoid Online, Broccoli, Za, Kevin Sosa, Omnis, Rockman TNT, Metin Coker, Eclectic Nonsense, Julia LV Mueller, Tulip McTulipson, I Lerb Cammy, Nova Deluxe, Samuel Robinson, and Evil Beast. Thank you guys. And thank you as always to my average freaks, including MomoSweetPeach, Lady Edekin, Juicemated, Nova Deluxe, Mothbites, Ellie is Gay, Exori, The Awesome GN, Leo, Boolet, Fossil Hunter, Totally Human Productions, Weirdo's World, The Witch of Art, Mesmer, Maycat, Robert Rock, Super Mega Ultra Alpha Omega Hyper Turbo Bigger Longer and Uncut Convoy, Vortex, Pain, The Gwangster, Good Soft Gay, Director Kate, Sourpuss Jenny, Loom, Dr. Sushi, Bradley the Radley, and HLO. And thank you as always to the huge freaks, including Muffins, Spookow, Cracked Vinyl, Minnal Orapine, King Clownbot, I'm Uranus, Driftwood, Lime Soda, Claire Duckett, Shake P, KDG, and Shiny Gem. And as always, thank you to the bafflingly generous supporter on my $69 joke tier, Tybee Fitzhugh, as well as anyone who's ever supported me on the joke tier in the Joke Tier Hall of Fame. Well, that's it for me today. If you're still listening, it's either because you just love my voice or you're not paying enough attention to have just clicked away to another video at this point. Love ya. Mwah.